All right, so here we go. So on to Moo Farm. Um, so interesting things here is that uh, the starting position is determined by your player position. So if you're first player, you start all the way to the right, and if you're fourth player, you start all the way to the left. Um, when you do a start boost, it's actually slightly faster to slide while you're in a start boost or shroom state. And some of these starts can get interesting because of the way the items line up and the way sometimes there's like some jockeying for position. So one of the things that I've noticed just in my testing that if you're first and second player, if you both get the start boost, and you both drive in a straight line, just like don't touch the stick at all. So, first player actually won't get an item. Like second player will block them from getting an item. Now there's ways to get around that. Like you could player one could slide or do something else or like I don't know. But basically Jim just drives straight here, and he's in first player. Whenever I'm first player, I never just drive straight. Like I either try to do a slide or usually what I'll do is I'll just sandbag. I'll angle out to the left because most everyone lines up to the right, like just the way you line up, and I'll just try to get something out to the left, or just wait till everyone goes through and just kind of pick my target. But Jim actually doesn't do any of that. He just drives straight like a noob, and you can see actually Dan cuts in front of him with the slide and gets his item. So, kind of surprising there for Jim. Like I feel like he should probably know that by now, but if he's watching this, take notes for next time, Jim. All right, so let's see, what do we got here? Okay, so Drew, Drew gets the star, and again, just kind of, I think it's just an auto spam, sort of like last race. I feel like there could be some thought process here, like okay, Jim's right there. I'm gonna actually just try to like nail him here, and you got a shot at Dan too. I kind of just feel like Drew's just reflex spamming here. So usually with a star, what you can do is you can try to double up on items. So wait, don't pass Drew and Dan. Maybe let Beck pass with his gold shroom, and then get, instead of getting first place items at the next block, get third or fourth place items, or wait till someone gets a bolt and try to get them to give you a shock dodge or something. So Drew again, just not great item usage here. He does get Jim, but again, I feel it's almost kind of like luck more than intentional thing here. So, oh, and he gets Dan too. So actually, okay, I can't take too much away from Drew. Double knockout on the stars, pretty good. So, yeah. So the other thing here with Beck is he got, he got a gold shroom, so he's gonna have to sit these items out. There's really no way to avoid unless you get hit or something and take a big time loss. There's really no way to get these items. The thing that he can do though is he can, if he goes too hard on the shroom and goes too fast, he can actually not get the next set of items too, like item block set 3. So I don't remember what he does here, but it'll be interesting to see if he actually can get item block 3. The other things you have to, when you get a golden shroom on that first item block, you want to, especially in that situation, because Moo Farm is a really dense item track. It's not a long track, and there's 4 sets of items, so it's like you're getting items all the time. You're getting items like every 7 seconds, 8 seconds, and a golden shroom lasts for like 10 seconds. So, basically, you have to fire it like right away, immediately, so that you're not gonna you're not gonna take 2 sets of items away from you. So Beck did a good job of getting that golden shroom fired. After getting it. So let's see. So I'm gonna have to back up here. So actually, he did. He actually did. He what he could have done there is he could have stopped firing it like at the tunnel, and instead of missing 2 sets of item blocks, he could have got. So the trade-off there is I don't know what the exact, let's just say he got 2 extra shrooms in. You probably got half a second, not even that, probably like a couple tenths of a second of extra speed there. This is called half a second. And then as a second place, you can get three reds, you can get a star, you can get all kinds of good stuff potentially. So if it were me, I probably would just go for the second set, the set of items, and not just keep hammering that golden shroom. This will come up again with Jimbo in lap 3, because Jimbo actually makes it even. Actually, sorry, Jimbo makes an okay play, but he gets hosed. Getting a golden shroom on the first set is not bad, because you can time the shroom so that you're not missing 2 sets. If you get a golden shroom on the second set of items, there's really no way to avoid missing 2 sets of items. It actually happens to Jim, so he gets a bad break. So again, I feel like Jimbo is. You can complain about luck to a certain extent, but he is actually getting some not great beats in the first 2 tracks. So let me back this up here. Because, okay, so so Dan gets a star. Jimbo's got golden shroom. Actually, wait, is this? Yeah, this is where he gets it. Jimbo gets the golden shroom on set 2, and there's really nothing he can do. Like, he has to sit up the next 2 sets of items, because they're just so close. So unless he gets hit with 3 shells or something, he's gonna skip 2 sets of items. And obviously it's better just to skip 2 sets of items. They hit, take that time loss. So, let's see. So Dan, actually, the other thing I was going to mention with Dan is you look at here. What I would have done here probably is saved that star and not fired it so early. And the thing with the star is that you get increased speed, and it's not always super easy. It's easier, in my opinion, to miss item blocks with the star speed. So generally what I'll do is I'll try to line myself up at the items first, and then trigger the star, and then double up on the item block. But Dan kind of did that kind of prematurely there. And he misses this item block, but spoiler alert, he actually misses this set of item blocks all 3 laps. And I think it has to do with his line here. Even though he's a star, he's going through the moles here because he's immune. But on laps 2 and 3, he takes the speed run route, goes up this hill, cuts the moles, which doesn't save that much time, especially in versus 4-player versus where the items are so crucial. I think this is kind of a thing. I think I would identify it for myself as a point where I would need to change my tactics and stop doing this, especially if you're going to go 0 for 3 on items. So I haven't noticed this on other tracks. I haven't actually specifically looked for it, but just when I was rewatching this race, I noticed Dan went 0 for 3 on those items, and that's that at player of his level. That's, I think, unacceptable. So oops, god damn, I did it again. My hotkeys I have. All right, let's back up. All right, so all right, so Jimbo's missing. He's skipping item blocks. Okay, Drew gets out into first. He actually has. He pulls out the trip reds. I made a note here about this. What was it? So Drew actually, he did a good job there of waiting for second player items. Let me see. Yeah, so he's in first now, right? He has the items cycling. Beck's behind him in second with a shroom. So Drew actually, heads up play here. He lets Beck pass, triggers the items, gets second place, and then actually denies Adam the item. He hits him with the red and denies him items there. So that's a really heads up play. So even again with Jimbo, he got hit, but even with getting hit, he still couldn't pick up those items. He had basically, when you get a gold shroom on item set 2, it's just the worst case scenario. So, all right. So let's see where we're at. All right. So here's the other thing. So again, if we look at here, is we have Drew out in first with I think he has 2. He has 2 reds, and Dan behind with 1 red. Dan fires a red here, which I feel like Dan did a really good job with his red management in LR, but I feel like this is a misplay. I feel like if I'm Dan, the best case scenario here is actually the red not hitting Drew, just taking out one of the reds, and you staying in second place. The worst case scenario for me, actually, thinking about this, is that you actually end up with a swap where the red hits Drew, you pass Drew, Drew fires red at you, and you get hit, and now all you've done is you've brought both of yourself back 2 seconds to Jim and Beck. So if I'm Dan here, I don't even take the risk. I don't even like worry about like his reds or trying to get rid of them or whatever. I just let him drive with the reds, stay in second place ahead of Jimbo and Beck, and then get second place items. So what you can see here for see how it works out. Dan fires the red. It takes it out actually. So that's actually the better case scenario. I actually thought I misremembered. I thought they did swap, but the risk there for me is like I'm not worth the risk. I'm probably just gonna not fire that shell. So Drew hits the bomb here. Drew's hit now a bomb in each race. The thing about this bomb, it's behind the hill, but Moo Moo Farm's such a wide track. There's literally no excuse for hitting this bomb. It's just, you have to remember, don't drive in the middle of the track before the first set of items. The track is like the widest track in the game. There's literally nothing to worry about. There's no edges or cliffs. It's just a huge runway of track. Just don't drive in the middle. It's like that's a bomb right there. So I kind of have to give Drew a hard time for that. Interestingly, Jimbo takes the exact same path, and he is Drew pulls out his red here, and I'm sorry, his green, and Jimbo would have hit the bomb if Drew hadn't taken it out, but then he hits Drew's green, and it's just I don't know. So I feel like Drew and Jim both just like they need to not drive there. It's just like Moo Moo Farm. Or even like 4-player 101, like just don't drive right there. There's a bomb, and it's not hard to get around or avoid. Okay, so let's see. All right, so Beck, I think right here gets a second place star, and again, let's see. Let's see what happens. Yeah, he gets a second place star, that's 5%. So that's a nice. That's a nice pickup for him. Dan, did Dan miss items? I think Dan missed items. Hotkey again. Yeah, he did. He drove through the items. Again, that's something where I feel like you really have to make I really make a point of trying to get those items, and like if that means not sliding, it means like sacrificing MT. I really feel like getting the item block is more important than the 0.2 for the MT or whatever it is. So again, I feel like Dan should probably, if he's going to work on something or try to like identify areas, maybe taking more sacrifices to make sure he gets item blocks. So Beck, let's see, he doubles up on items here, gets another second place. Drew's getting a third place item. So Beck's got a bolt. Dan, again, missing the item blocks. He's without a star. He's going to the right. He's going up. He's taking like the GP time trials route here. Going around the moles is not that much slower. It's just in 4-player versus, unless you have a boo or a star, like just go around. It's not worth it. So Drew and Jim both have bolts here, and then Beck has a star. So obviously they're going to try to wait until Beck's star animation goes away. Actually, the other thing to remember here is that the animation ends, but the star effect lasts for like a second or two after the animation goes away, so you have to be careful not to do it too early. But the other thing here is that what's interesting about this position is you have 2 bolts, and then when you have a bolt, you also don't want to fire it at the same time. Like, it's better to have someone fire it or you fire it and then someone else fires. Let's take it back a sec. If someone else fires a bolt and you have a bolt, you want to wait until the bolt effect wears off before you fire your bolt. Ideally, it's always not like there's always a counterpoint or some other case like edge case, but what Jim and Drew have to decide here now is that like if they fire first, they are probably going to pass each other, or they're probably going to. So they're going to. The trade-off is, do you want to try to fire your bolt first and then maybe get a slightly worse item? But then what you're doing is you're actually blocking someone else from using their bolt, so that they're stopping. You're going to prevent them from getting an item. So you could, they could sacrifice that, the total effect of their bolt, and to get the item. So, but for me, I see two bolts coming out. I want to try to race, probably for me personally in this position. I want to be the person to get my bolt off first once Beck's star goes out, because what you're doing there is hopefully you're gonna try. You will prevent someone from getting an item. Like you could block. Like if I'm Jim, I could try to block Drew from getting an item by forcing him to keep his bolt through one set of items, essentially. Hopefully that makes sense. So Beck goes through the moles. Dan goes through the moles without anything. Beck, I think from this point on, Beck is clear. He just front runs. So second place star is good. It's a good thing to get. And then now we're gonna see what happens with the two bolts. So actually Drew uses his first, and he waits. It's a good play. He misses the items, but I think that was the best. I think that was the better play. I think actually he outplayed Jim there. I feel like if I were Jim, I would try to get my bolt off before Drew. Drew missed the items anyway, so it didn't really matter. But now Jim's gonna have to. Now he has to decide: do I fire this bolt off and sacrifice the how efficient it is or how effective it is to get a fourth place item, or do I skip the fourth place item and then make my bolt be more effective against Beck and Dan? So we'll see what he does here. So he actually opts for the second. He actually goes and he gets he swaps. He fires it off to kind of sacrifice some of the effectiveness of that bolt, and then gets a fourth place item. Unfortunately, he gets a blue, which isn't super great. Blue is. I mean, he's. Yeah. If I were Jim, he's probably hoping for something better than a blue there. So not really a good gamble. I mean, it was a gamble, but not a good payout, I should say. All right. So the other thing here that I'd look at is, so Beck is in second with 3 greens, and actually before I move on, the other thing that Jim, I think, was a misplay here is that in general you're looking to maximize the effects of your items. And when a blue basically has a penalty of a red, it's like 2.5 seconds max, unless you're hitting someone off the track or something. But that's the penalty when you're big and not in a lightning small state. So here, if I'm Jim, I just use my bolt. I'm gonna hold that blue until the bolt wears off, so that by the time it hits first place, it's maximizing that effect of that tumble. So like if Drew, let's say he's able to he might lose, instead of losing 2.5 seconds or 2.5 seconds, he's gonna lose maybe 1 second or something, because he's small and he's not going as fast as he would if he was big. So again, this is another little small thing that Jim probably is a slight misplay there. All right. So the other thing here is, like, Beck is sitting here in second place, and he's got 3 reds, and he's got Dan behind him with 2. He got 3 green shells. He's got Dan behind him with 2 reds. If I'm Beck, I am holding onto these 3 greens, and I am just as blockers. He's basically taking shots here at Drew to try to snipe him, but I feel like it's a low percentage. At the risk of getting hit with Dan's reds. I think this is basically a misplay here. And because if you get 2 reds behind, you're looking at like 5 seconds of penalty, right? So if I'm Beck, I am at the minimum going to wait to see what Dan gets on this next item, and also maybe try to wait for the bolt animation to wear off, so that if I do snipe Drew with greens, it's going to be more of an impact on him. But I think this is a misplay from Beck. I think if he should hold these greens so that he's not exposed to Dan's reds, and then also by doing that, he actually will force Dan to be more of kind of like a roadblock to Jimbo. So Dan, if he sees someone in front of him like with 3 reds, but then Jimbo coming behind him, he might be more enticed to keep those reds to prevent Jim from trying to pass him. So I think by exposing himself, by getting rid of his blockers, he's basically helping both Dan and Jimbo. He's basically hurting himself more than anything. So, yeah. So he fires off all 3, and then so he's gonna get he has another blocker to pull out, but it only took 1. Dan actually could have probably hit him with 2. There's a thing where you can actually hit you can throw a red as you're passing basically and get so if Dan wanted to target Beck, he could have actually, I think, tried to hit him with 2. Dan, I think, did not target. He obviously didn't target Beck with 2. He actually saw, I think he was either going to target Drew, but I think the blue was coming, so I think he held on to the red. So let's just watch this back. No, he didn't. He threw it after Drew. So yeah, he hits Drew with the red. That must have been like the blue must have already hit Drew. Yeah, the blue hits him when he's small. Okay, so that was a good play by Dan. Dan just got a bunch of reds. He had like 4 reds there. So okay, so let's see. Where are we at? Sorry, yeah, get my notes here. All right, okay. So here's one other thing. So Jim here, you'll see again going back to gold shrooms. This is where gold shrooms, these really like are one of the things that actually balances out 3rd and 4th place items a little bit, because gold shrooms, while they give you a speed boost, they really kind of are. They're like I think probably arguably the worst item to get while you're in 3rd or 4th. The problem is you can't cancel it, you can't get rid of it, and you're basically it's a blocker. It's an item blocker. You can't double up while it's active. So one thing that you can do is you can basically learn how to maximize or minimize the impact, but the negative impacts of these gold shrooms. So you can kind of basically memorize the correct play for each set of item blocks in the entire game. I actually went through that exercise a couple years ago. But basically, Jim, he did not fire his. So he basically was, as soon as he should get this, he did fire it correctly. So, yeah. I'm sorry. He fired it early, which is what you're supposed to do. But what I would have done here is, in order, just like we saw with back on lap 1, he didn't back off on the shroom and he skipped both sets of items. Jim was not backing off on that gold shroom. In order to get that, he's going to have to skip 1 set of items, but he doesn't have to skip the 2nd set. He can get item set number 3 on this track. But he wasn't doing that. And strangely, he actually goes and gets, he runs into, was it Drew's shroom? Drew's red? I can't remember. That was Dan. So if I'm Jim here, I am just hanging back. I am like, okay, I'm in 2nd place. I'm going to stop firing my shroom at this point. I'm going to try to block Abney from items and just hang behind Dan, who has a red, and get a 2nd place item. Or maybe even get an item block, maybe try to block Beck from getting items on item set 3, and then let Beck pass me and get a 3rd place item or something. That's probably what I would do. But Jim just goes ham on this golden shroom, and I just think it's a clear misplay. I think he needs to back off anyway, because if he keeps hammering it, he's going to miss those items. Dan's got a red. What's he going to do if he gets in front of Dan? Dan's going to hit him with a red. Maybe he's trying to get rid of Dan's red. I don't know, but if I'm him, I'm just letting Dan sit out in 1st place with a red, and I'm going to go for 2nd or 3rd place items and try to get 3 reds or a star or something to, or even if you get shrooms, the Dan has a red, you can try to like race him to the line at the very last second or something. But I'm not just hammering my golden shroom like with reckless abandon here. So he gets hit. Okay, so what happens now? Let's see. Dan again 0 for 3, misses that set of items. He don't want to hammer it out too hard. I've already mentioned it like 3 times, but again, just misses the items. Me personally, I'm driving straight through those. He does go around the moles here, but at that point, there's really no reason to be sliding through those items. You just want to go straight. You want to be like directly targeting an item block set, maybe scanning for fakes. I personally am not sliding through that area and like setting myself up through like to go above the moles. I'm like focusing on getting item blocks and not hitting other people's traps in that spot. So again, just something I think Dan should probably correct. Beck does get the items here. What does he get? He gets trip. Okay, so Dan's in first with the green. Beck's got 3 shrooms. Jimbo and Dan are like right on top of each other. I mean, sorry, Jimbo and Drew are right on top of each other there, and Drew misses items and Jimbo gets trip reds. So it looks like and everyone's really close at this point. It's like you can see Jim's in 4th place, and you can see Beck, who's in 2nd, who's like basically right on top of Dan. So they're like not too far. So Jimbo hits Drew with the red. Beck shrooms, and then what does Jimbo do? Oops, god damn it, hotkeys, stop it. So the other thing I would have done here is Jimbo has a red, and he's firing it on Dan, who has a blocker. Like Abney's past Dan at this point. Dan can try to snipe Abney with like a sideways thrown green. But if I'm Dan, I'm just letting Abney go. I'm playing. Jimbo has reds behind me. I'm holding this blocker, and then maybe hoping to get a shroom or something. I mean, a shell or something on these item blocks to hit Beck with. But I'm holding that blocker, so he does that. He plays that correctly, I think. But what Jim should have done here, Drew's out of the picture. Like Jim's past Drew. Drew's like a non-factor at this point. Dan has a blocker. I'm firing both reds immediately because Dan's going to come up on this other set of items. If he gets a blocker, he's going to have time to pull it out. So I fire both of these reds like immediately and don't give Dan that opportunity to block both. So Dan gets the items. Beck's clear, actually. He's really good shrooms here. So I definitely want to point that out. Very good slidey shrooms. You don't see, sliding and shrooms are like, that's the optimal play, but he does really good. He's just 4 players not easy to do that, and he does a good job. So, definitely don't feel like I'm calling out everyone's mistakes. I'm trying to highlight good plays too. But, but Jim definitely so we get Dan. The red hits home there, but so if Jim had fired both immediately, it would have hit Dan. He wouldn't have had time to pull out his blocker, and I think that's honestly it's a point mistake from Jimbo there. And then at this point, it's too late. Everyone's pretty much locked in. So yeah. So again, 2 wins for Beck. I feel like Jim has been playing okay. He's making some mistakes, but he definitely got a couple of bad beats, especially with like the golden shroom. Just getting it on item block 2 is like the worst case scenario. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's all I've analyzed so far with notes. So yeah, I'll look at other ones probably and see how it goes. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.